Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive. Today we are diving deep into Tracy K. Smith's poem, Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
It's a poem that paints this really vivid picture of the future, and I'm excited to break it down line by line with you today and really see what it has to say, especially to fans of science fiction.
Yeah, it's one of those poems that it's not just making predictions about the future, but it's really like a commentary on like how humanity might evolve. And it uses this really cool sci-fi lens to kind of explore these really complex ideas.
Yeah, and I love how it just like jumps right into it. You know, right from the first line, it says, "There will be no edges but curves, clean lines pointing only forward." So like right away, we are in this world that feels so different from like our present, you know?
Right.
Everything's sleek and smooth and it's all about progress. What do you think about that image, especially from like a visual sci-fi perspective?
Well, I think she does a really great job of like setting the tone right away.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a fan of those like utopian societies and sci-fi, you know, this line might evoke that. But at the same time, there's this like underlying sense of unease, you know, like
Yes.
everything's a little too perfect, a little too controlled, like those dystopian stories where, you know,
Right.
individuality is kind of stifled.
Exactly.
So it's like hinting at both of those possibilities right from the beginning.
Yeah, and then she takes us even further into this future with a next line. She says, "History, with its hard spine and dog-eared corners, will be replaced with nuance, just like the dinosaurs gave way to mounds and mounds of ice." I mean, first of all, that image of history turning into ice,
Yeah.
it's so powerful. But what do you think is the deeper meaning there?
I think that line is like really crucial for understanding the whole poem.
Okay.
Because it's suggesting that in this future, history isn't this like fixed record anymore. It's like constantly shifting and open to interpretation. And you know, as a sci-fi fan, you've probably encountered stories where like memories are manipulated, like
gives it a touch.
Total Recall or Inception.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Big ones.
And so I think Smith is kind of tapping into that fear that in this future we might lose touch with the truth of the past.
Right.
And even our own identities along with it.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
Okay, this next line, I have to admit, it kind of threw me for a loop. She says, "Women will still be women, but the distinction will be empty. Sex, having outlived every threat, will gratify only the mind, which is where it will exist." So what are we talking about here? A world where like gender and physical intimacy are just irrelevant.
Yeah, I think this is where Smith is like really challenging those classic sci-fi tropes about gender and sexuality,
Okay.
you know? Like think about stories like The Left Hand of Darkness, which explores a society with no fixed genders.
Right.
I think Smith's poem is pushing that idea even further, you know? Like imagining a future where even physical desire is transcended.
Wow.
And so it raises these questions about like the evolution of human connection and what forms intimacy might take in this, you know, highly advanced society.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And then we get to this line, "For kicks, we'll dance for ourselves before mirrors studded with golden bulbs." So it's like, even in this future where everything's so different, there's still this human need for self-expression.
Right, and I think that line is so important because it reminds us that even in a future that's like dominated by technology,
Yeah.
that human need for creativity and individual expression that's still there, those golden bulbs, you know, they could be anything.
Yeah.
Advanced VR, sensory enhancement, who knows?
Right.
But the point is, we're still going to be seeking out beauty and meaning, even if the forms they take are totally different.
Yeah, and then there's this line that comes next that I found really unsettling. It says, "The oldest among us will recognize that glow, but the word sun will have been reassigned to a standard uranium-neutralizing device found in households and nursing homes." So the sun is just a household appliance now.
Yeah, it's a really striking image, and I think it speaks to a potential consequence of all this technological advancement, you know?
Okay.
The sun, which is like the symbol of life and nature, it's reduced to just a functional object.
Right.
And for you as a sci-fi reader, this might evoke those stories where humanity loses touch with the natural world. They become completely dependent on these artificial environments, and it makes you wonder, what's the cost of all this progress?
Yeah, I mean, is it worth it, is the question.
Yeah.
And then finally we get to this last image, which is both breathtaking and kind of haunting at the same time. It says, "And yes, we'll live to be much older, thanks to popular consensus. Weightless, unhinged eons from even our own moon will drift in the haze of space, which will be, once and for all, scrutable and safe." So we've achieved immortality, we're exploring the cosmos, but there's also this sense of like emptiness and detachment.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the question that Smith is leaving us with, you know? It's like we've reached this point of ultimate achievement.
Right.
But is it really a happy ending?
Yeah.
You know, think about those classic space operas where you have these vast empires that spread across the galaxy. But they often lose their humanity along the way.
Yeah, they do.
And I think Smith is challenging us to consider what really matters in the face of this, like, immense technological advancement.
So in a way, it's like a cautionary tale almost.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that.
Okay, well, we've taken this journey through Smith's vision of the future, and it's definitely a future that's full of contradictions. You know, it's sleek and streamlined, but there's this undercurrent of unease. There's this potential loss of history, of nature, of even like what it means to be human.
Yeah, and I think what makes this poem so powerful is that it's not just about the future. It's a reflection of our anxieties and hopes about the future. And as a sci-fi fan, I think it's like a call to action almost, you know, like
What do you mean?
to think critically about the stories that we tell ourselves about progress and what we might be sacrificing in our pursuit of it.
That's a good point.
Does Smith's vision resonate with you?
Definitely makes me think.
Yeah, what aspects of this future would you embrace? And what would you resist? I think those are the questions that really linger
Yeah.
long after you finish reading the poem, and they make you kind of re-examine not just the future of humanity,
Right.
but your own values and desires right here in the present.
It's a poem that really stays with you, that's for sure.
It really does.
All right, well, thanks for taking this deep dive with me today.
Yeah, this was fun.
Until next time, keep exploring those big questions, and we'll see you back here for another deep dive soon.
See you then.